Hello, and welcome to the fifth installment of Healthcare Marketing Pulse. Healthcare Marketing Pulse is a 5-part webinar series for healthcare marketers from the digital marketing experts at Fathom. In today's session, we're going to build off session 4 and go a few steps deeper into how you might apply artificial intelligence for your marketing work. My name's Joe Adams. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Fathom, and I'm going to be the moderator today. Before we dive into the content, I want to share a couple housekeeping items. And first and foremost, thank you all for your interest in today's session. Second, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature. You'll find the Q&A feature in the middle of the Zoom control bar. If you don't see that option there, click those 3 dots next to more options, and it'll be among that menu. We're going to answer all of those questions at the end of today's session. And so if we don't hit yours in the moment, don't be alarmed. We'll get to it. Last but not least, if you want to reach out to go deeper on any subjects, please just raise your hand via comment or using the raise hand feature, and we'll follow up to schedule time to chat following today's session. With that, I'd like to introduce today's host, Jeremy Mathis. Jeremy is Fathom's Vice President of Client Success. He leads our account management, strategy, and project management functions. Jeremy's got deep expertise and experience in healthcare, thanks to time he's spent both at Fathom and on the health system marketing side. In addition to leading the client success team here at Fathom, Jeremy provides peer-level support to CMOs and VPs at many of our top healthcare client organizations. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. And again, welcome all to the 5th and final installment of the summer series of our Healthcare Marketing Pulse. As Joe mentioned, we are going to go deep into artificial intelligence, really focusing on the application in this session. So I want to introduce a few colleagues that are going to be here with me today. But first, you'll hear from Brittany Travis. Brittany is our Executive Vice President of AI Innovation. And Brittany is joined by Elise Horst. Elise is our Director of AI Solutions. As Joe mentioned, this is a session that's a continuation of our session number 4, which was really focused on more of an introduction to AI. So I want to cover just a few key points here that we covered in our last session. And if you missed that for any reason, please go ahead and download that from our website. You can visit fathomdelivers.com, check that out, download it, listen to it there. Be a good introduction into what we're going to talk about here today. So last session, we covered really 3 key points that I want to make sure that we ground ourselves in as we get started today. Number 1, AI is here, right? And we know that it is transforming not only marketing and how we're working, but also the healthcare space overall, right? And we've seen a number of organizations that we partner with and other leading institutions in the space really utilizing the technology for patient care initiatives, administrative work, research, et cetera. But for us as healthcare marketers, what we're focused on here today is understanding the technology, how we can use it responsibly and appropriately to really help drive the outcomes that we're responsible for. So that's the first point. The second point really is around that AI adoption and the path forward, the way to do this in the most successful manner requires 2 things. First, we need to have a plan, right? And this seems basic. Everything we want to do as marketers, we should have a plan. Really important here when there is new technology in place. We want to understand what we're doing with it, where we're going, and then put a very intentional pathway in front of us so that we can move ahead. Second piece is collaboration, right? So as we all know, it's very rare that we should do things in a silo, right? And so as we really look to adopt a brand new technology like AI, we want to make sure that we're bringing in our partners in our organization, right? So everyone from IT, maybe compliance, legal, others in the space that may have an interest in using the tool and defining some of the governance of things around that. So let's make sure that we collaborate here internally. And the last piece is probably the most important, right? As we're beginning our journey, the most important thing we can do is defining the why, right? What are we looking to do with this? Why are we utilizing AI? And where do we want to go with it? And with that, Brittany, I'd love to hear from you and maybe go a couple levels deeper on the why.
Yeah. So I think you really hit it as we talk about our last session. And we talked a lot about you need to understand why. And so you probably left the last session thinking where do I go? Where should I start first? And that's why it is so important to clarify your why. And so today we're going to go through this framework and go deeper into it. So when we left off last time, we talked about how we look at this framework as a way of what's your why to get to the value. So are you looking to reskill or upskill your teams? Or are you looking to understand and unlock data or enhance your creative and content strategy or to find and create efficiencies? We each have a different why. And so we're going to go deep into each of those 4 pillars today, give you examples of ways that you can deliver that why to get to value, but also help you go on that journey as you're looking to create that AI adoption on your team of why am I doing this? And the first place to really start thinking about this is how AI is really transforming our space. And so one of my favorite quotes out there is from Richard Baldwin. And so he said this last year at the World Economic Forum Growth Summit. AI won't take your job. It's somebody using AI that will take your job. And so many of us on here, I would expect, are marketers and likely digital marketers. And so you start to think about, as our careers have advanced over the years, there were traditional marketers and there were people who didn't really want to adopt technology and understand MarTech and data and this new thing called paid search and SEO. But there were people who wanted to learn it. People like us who are like, hey, there's something here with digital. There's something here with MarTech that I really think could advance marketing. And so we started to take those jobs and create new jobs for digital marketing. It's no different than today, except for now as digital marketers, we're a bit of the traditionalists. And now AI is that new thing coming in. And so as you think about what puts it in a risky position in terms of roles, it's those who know how to use AI. And so we want to help you on that journey as you've been looking to adopt AI, starting to really use it, and start to give you some of those tips. And so it really starts with prompting. I'm sure many of you have seen on LinkedIn, I think a lot of people like to share them, the prompting one-pager or your guide to prompting. And so I'm here to help really boil it down to 3 core rules. If you're looking for a framework, we are happy to share one with you, but they really boil down to 3 core rules when you think about prompting. And prompting is really important, really because that's your conversation with machines. That's your conversation with the AI. So it starts with defining your objective. Then you go on to give it a job, and then you want to provide the context. Again, the better you prompt, the better the outcome is. And so as we define the objective, you just want to clearly define what you want it to achieve. So what do you want AI to do for you? And then give it a job. This is like one of my favorite things about AI, especially LLMs and machine learning. Models love to learn, but models want to know what their job is. You need to tell them specifically what their job is and what you want them to do. Because based on your prompt or based on your ask, right, you have a different job you want them to play. And so as you give them that job, some examples could be, I want my AI to be like my intern. And so find research on XYZ. Or I need somebody to help me create ideas. So you could say things like generate ideas. Or I want you to edit. This is probably the number one way people are using LLMs today. And so edit and fix this. Or teacher, teach me this. Some other ways that you can even think about this and that I like to use prompting as act as if you are a chief marketing officer for a insert XYZ. If you give them a specific role, it makes it even more clear to the AI what role it should be playing. And then that goes into the 3rd rule, which is provide the context. So AI, they're models and they're very curious. And so treat it like a very curious toddler. Like my 3-year-old Emma, she's constantly saying, why mommy, why mommy, why mommy? Think of it the same way here, right? It's a game. You need to give it all the context so it understands the why. That's how AI is. And so you want to give the model enough context that it understands what it needs to do for the scenario you're giving it. Based on those 3 core rules, then you start to get a really strong output and you can start to have the conversation back and forth with the machine learning. Now, I did put together 3 prompts just to get you started. So these are 3 examples that you could use today after the webinar, not during the webinar, And it starts with a creative brief development. So many of us have created creative briefs. It might be on your to-do list right now. And here's a prompt that you could use today. You can easily just screenshot this, copy, paste it in. But you think about, okay, the objective that I want it to do. Develop a brief that guides my creative team. What's the job? I want you to outline the key elements that should be included in the creative asset. And then what's the context? Well, we're creating materials right now for a heart health campaign. So what should the creative brief include to ensure the team it produces is effective and has the messaging content? And this is a starting point. And you can even get even more clear in the context of, I want you to use this template, and you can provide a template for it. But you can see how those 3 core rules come together in terms of creative brief. The next is post-campaign analysis, likely something else that's sitting on our to-do list. I know it's sitting on my to-do list right now. And so it starts with, all right, evaluate the effectiveness of this campaign. And you can even get more detailed with it of like how you were actually measuring the effectiveness. Like I needed a 5% click-through rate or something. And then give it the job. So I want you to analyze the performance data. This starts to tell the LLM that it's an analyst. And this is specifically what you want it to do. And then give it the context. Like our recent campaign aimed to increase that patient checkups. And here's how we can assess it. Again, more context, the better it's going to understand what type of analysis to do for you. And then the third example is target audience research. This is a big one that marketers, if you're not using, should definitely start to use, whether it's within a chat like a ChatGPT or a Gemini. Perplexity is a great research tool. Giving it a prompt around, hey, gather insights about this target audience's preference and needs, and then conduct that research. So now its job is a researcher. And the context is we're targeting young adults for mental health awareness. What key insights can you gather for it? And so now it knows that it's doing research on young adults, mental health, and it's going to give you information to inform how you should have that campaign. These are just 3 of millions and millions of different prompts that you can have. One last tip that I would give you on prompting, if you don't know what to prompt, just ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT loves to write prompts for itself or for other platforms. So just tell it what you're trying to do and ask it to create a prompt, and it will write it for you. And then you can put that in and it will start to do the prompting for you.
Right. So building off of that prompting foundation, we're going to talk through a couple of different applications. So once you have prompting down and you're feeling confident in your ability to kind of communicate what you want with AI, then there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. So the first bucket is surrounding data, which is maybe a lesser thought of application for AI. I think the first thing that comes to mind right now with where LLMs are is content generation, and we're going to talk about that too. But first, we're going to talk about some ways that you can use AI to help you understand and unlock data. I know as marketers, we often feel like we have so much data at our disposal and we just don't know how to sift through it to find what's most important to us. Sometimes on the healthcare side, I know it feels like data is a little bit limited or fragmented based on all of the regulations and things that have happened in recent years. And AI is a really great partner to help you bridge data together and derive meaningful insight from it, kind of no matter how fragmented it is in current state. So these are just a few things that we do internally leveraging AI related to data. Improving data hygiene is something that you can do with AI. So that could look like filling in blank data or removing outliers from data, merging data sets, cleaning up formatting, things like that. That would otherwise be pretty tedious and maybe timely for you to do. AI is a really great way to create some efficiency there. It's also great for performance analysis and review. So it could be as simple as something like just understanding how appointment volume changed month over month and digging into maybe places where it was up and places where it was down, or it could be much more advanced than that, kind of up to you and how comfortable you feel prompting and leveraging data at that point. We also use it a lot for campaign optimization. So it's a great tool to help us understand things like how CPCs are fluctuating over time. Should we be implementing bid caps? Where are our conversion rates sitting and how might we optimize those? So there's a lot of capabilities from a campaign optimization standpoint. And then what we're going to talk about today, an example of, is forecasting and predictive analysis, which is something that can help you kind of understand what the future might look like in a way that is a lot less manual than how you might be doing it today, and also a lot more accurate. because AI is able to bring a lot more context to the situation than we might be able to do if we were to just do a manual projection. So we're going to talk about forecasting with our data. The tool that we typically use for this internally is Accio, which is an AI-based tool specifically purposed for data. So it has sort of a data upload and prepare functionality. And then there's a couple of different things that you can do with your data once you get it into Accio. We're going to talk about the predictive or forecasting capabilities, but there's also an exploration feature, which functions a lot like ChatGPT in the sense that you're able to just sort of engage with and ask questions of your data, which is a really cool feature as well. But today we're going to talk about forecasting. And the first step to forecasting is to upload your data set into Accio. You want to upload as much data as possible. The more data you give it, the longer time frame it can forecast out for you. So in this example, we had Chat actually help us make up a fictional health system called Sierra Vista Health. It's located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It sounds lovely. And this is fictional data for a spine campaign that Sierra Vista is running. So that's what we're evaluating here. And we uploaded into Accio all of that data, and you can see on screen here, it kind of populates an Excel sheet looking format for you to view that data. The next step is making sure that you play around with formatting. A lot of times when you upload a data set into Accio, it's not formatted in the way that is conducive to data analysis. There will be like percentage signs and commas in place. Maybe the dates aren't all formatted correctly. Some things are to a second decimal place, some things are to the first decimal place. All little things that would take you a while to clean up if you were to do it manually. But in Accio, they have a chat prepare functionality, or similar to how you would tell ChatGPT something, you would just type in what you want to change and Accio will do that for you. So in this example, we really want to just see the month and the year. We don't need the date formatted the way it is. So we're able to just tell Accio, anywhere where there's a date, we want it to look like this. And so it goes through and does that work for us. And the nice thing about Accio is it allows for a lot of checks and balances. So it's not just going to go off and do whatever you told it to do. It's going to show you what exactly it's changing and help you understand why that is and if there's anything that you should be aware of in making that change. So you can see here it's highlighting that date column and making sure that you're okay with the way that it interpreted your prompt. And then you can go ahead and hit transform or kind of approve that change. So there's a lot of control around the changes you're making, and you can feel confident in kind of following through that process. And then another use case from sort of a data cleanliness standpoint is removing outliers. So that's something that's really important for forecasting, because if you have a lot of outliers in the data set, it can really skew your forecast. And it's really simple to do in Accio. You can simply prompt it, like we did here in the example, to flag any outliers and remove them from the data set. This is, like we said, a data set that Chat came up with. So it's a little bit more perfect than probably the data sets that we would be working with in reality. And there are no outliers, which is great. But if there were, Accio would have flagged them. And then you can also go as far as to ask Accio to then remove those outlier values and replace them with more normalized values. So nothing skewing your data. You still have a comprehensive data set, and then you can move forward with forecasting from there. So just one example of sort of a data cleanliness step that you can do with Accio. And then your next step is to generate a forecast. And Accio has a couple of different functionalities here. Their predictive functionality is not time-bound. So if you just wanted to look at the volume output of something, you could use predict. In this case, we wanted to have a time-bound forecast. We wanted to see what the next few months look like for us. So we used the forecasting functionality. And once you click into that, there's just a couple of more steps that you have to follow to give Accio a bit more direction around what it is you want to forecast and how you'd like it to go about doing it. So one of the things that you'll select is which KPI or field you want to forecast for. So in this case, we are forecasting for conversion rate. So we went ahead and selected that. And there's a couple other different selections that you can make. You can choose if you want it to just run as quickly as possible or be as accurate as possible. You can change sort of the duration of the forecast. Just a few selections here before you go ahead and click Create Predictive Model. And then the first thing you're going to want to do once you complete the forecast is look at the accuracy of it. So this being a fictional data set, luckily we have a high degree of accuracy here. So this is something that we would look at and feel comfortable moving forward with. So you can see it shows you the ground truth, which is basically your historical performance against what Accio would have projected performance to look like. And as long as those things look really similar, you can feel confident in the fact that the forecast is going to be pretty accurate with a good representation of what is going to happen in months to come. So then you can view your forecast a little bit further down. You can also export this into Excel so that you can do additional work with it if needed. And then there's also some additional visuals. So you can look at this visual here is one that I like to look at, which shows seasonality. So you can understand kind of the seasonal impact of performance on the KPI that you're forecasting for, which might help you make budgeting decisions around when you might focus more budget and when you might pull back. So all of this to say that Accio forecasting is a great way to leverage AI to really advance your forecasting capabilities internally. And if you're in a situation where you're going through something like zero-based budgeting, for example, and you have to make a case for the dollars that you need for the year, being able to forecast to a high degree of accuracy is really important so that you can go out and say, these are the results we expect to see if we continue business as usual. And this is what we might see if we increase budget or change things around here or there. So this is a really great tool to help you understand what the future might look like, and also in a way that provides you a lot of additional value and things that you wouldn't get if you were just working in Excel and coming up with the forecast on your own. So that is one application. Like kind of switching gears, we're focused on kind of the complete opposite. So going from something that's very data heavy to something that is more creative and content based, which is another great use case for AI, especially our LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude and the like. So these are a few examples of ways that you might use AI in the content space. It can write content for you. It can write blog content, email content, social post content, whatever it is you need. It can help you analyze creative. So that might be something that you do through chat, or a tool like Accio could help you review how all of your display creative is performing and which messages are resonating best with the audience, things like that. It can help you determine messaging strategy. It's a really great thought partner for thinking through what does the audience care about? What are the value props for my healthcare organization or this particular service line, and which of those might stand out most to the audience? It's really helpful in that way. And then it can also help from an SEO standpoint. Obviously, optimizing content is a big part of SEO, and that can be really time consuming and tedious, and chat and other LLMs can make that a lot simpler. You can give it some direction and have it help you make those changes to make sure that your content is optimized for SEO. And then the example that we're going to talk about today is ad copy creation. So we're going to create some paid search copy. So in this case, we're using ChatGPT to help us write some paid search copy for Sierra Vista, and they are running an advanced spine care program. So we gave Chat a little bit of background about the campaign that we're running, who the target audience is, and what we're hoping to achieve. So you can think about this sort of as the setting objectives point in the process that Brittany talked about earlier. We're telling Chat, this is broadly what we're looking to achieve today, and here's a little bit of context. And then we actually used Chat to help build a lot of that context for us. So that's a really interesting use case of AI too. You don't necessarily have to come with all the answers. It can kind of help you build on the information that you already have internally to make it a little bit more robust and help improve the quality of your output. So once we told it a little bit about what we wanted it to do for us, it provided us kind of an initial answer around what it thinks the audience's key motivators and challenges are, all in the interest of helping us better understand what messaging points are going to resonate most when we go to write our ad copy. And then you can further refine that information by providing Chat more information or having it help you provide that information to it. So we went ahead and pulled together some additional information about Sierra Vista Health and its competitors. So we gave it some fictional background information. Chat wrote us a lovely mission statement that we gave it and some core values. We had it make up some competitors of Sierra Vista Health and how they promote their spine program so that it can kind of understand what other messages are going to be in market alongside our campaign. And then we also gave it some key messaging points that we're thinking might be relevant for this campaign for Sierra Vista. So we gave it all of this information and then asked it to refine its output based on it. And it just edited and strengthened that out for us. So once we have that context all built out, then we can go ahead and give it some more specific direction. So in this case, we're writing paid search copy, rewrite copy at the ad group level. So we provided it a list of all of the ad groups and keywords that are relevant to our campaign and gave it some specific direction around what exactly we want it to do, which is to write one responsive search ad per ad. And then this is the output. So it gives us a table that shows us all of the headline options and descriptions that are required for Google's responsive search ads in alignment with that messaging strategy that we built together earlier on in the chat. So it learned from all of that information that we provided it and that we created together and used it to inform this output here. One thing to be wary of is that chat is really bad at counting characters, and there are specific character limits for a lot of things like paid search copy. So that's a great human checkpoint for you to go and review and make sure that the character counts all fit within Google's limits. But from here, you can go a little bit further and actually ask chat to provide it feedback on the copy that it wrote. Usually, if you were to write copy and think about, does this meet expectations? I'm sure you're going to say, yes, I did a great job writing this copy. I feel good about it. Chat is pretty hard on itself when it provides feedback, but it is really robust and it actually will go through and edit everything based on its feedback. But it does produce a stronger result. And you can kind of go through that as many times as you feel necessary until you get to ad copy or content or what have you that feels in line with your expectations and your brand voice. And the more you do that, the more chat learns what it is you want and what it is you don't, so that it can improve its results in the future. So just an example of a way that you can use AI to help not only generate copy, but really put more thought and effort maybe into the process leading up to it than you otherwise would. I know there's a lot of instances where maybe, previously at Fathom, we might have just taken the list of keywords and developed some ad copy. And this really allows us to think through things at a higher level and really understand what the audience is thinking about. And AI is a great thought partner in helping us decide that.
Thanks, Elise. I just love those examples so much because those are things that we do every day as marketers, and AI has already proven to not only help us amplify the value, but also there's an efficiency piece to that. And so let's come to the last pillar here, find and create efficiencies. So AI can help us overcome some of the challenges that we're facing. I think Elise hit some of those already around data hygiene and analytics, and then helping us write. But resource constraints is something that many of us are facing. And we hit on this in a previous session of the Healthcare Marketing Pulse. And we talked a lot about how the economic and operational factors are starting to hit us. And so how do we do more with the same or less? And that's where AI can help us create those efficiencies, but really automate a lot of those repetitive tasks that we're doing and help us optimize those resource allocation. So if you think about your perfect day, how would you dream about your perfect day? What are things that you might be doing? It's likely a lot of thinking work. It's likely a lot of strategic work, things that fulfill you, things that are creative, things that you wake up and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go do it. How many times do you wake up and think I cannot wait to get to that task list and pull that report again? Probably not on your perfect day. And that's where we like to use the model of think versus thunk work. This is a model by Cassie Kozyrkov, and she's Google's first chief decision scientist. So she since has left Google and created her own company. But this model is just so helpful as you start to think about how can I create efficiencies with AI. So that think work is that very strategic, high value activities that you're doing. Think about, again, that perfect day. I'm doing brand and creative strategy. I'm whiteboarding. I'm thinking about all the different ways that we can really help build our brand. There's campaign planning. So what would be the perfect campaign for this, for a heart campaign? Or I really want to get patient referrals. What are ways that I can put together this plan? And that's a lot of that collaboration and working with others. And then there's relationship building. So we think about all the stakeholders that we have in a healthcare system. A lot of the work that we do is on the relationship side. And so that takes a lot of talking and networking and lunches and meetings. And this is a great way to start thinking about how can I maximize my relationship building as I go into my thunk work, which is automating my routine, low value activities. I mentioned it. Do you wake up so excited to pull your stakeholder report today? Probably not. AI can help you there. What about note taking and follow up? So yeah, I'm focused on the think part, that relationship building and building those relationships with other stakeholders and those within my health system or other health systems. But afterwards, like the taking the notes and the follow ups and everything that comes with it, that falls in the thunk category. And that's an area that AI can help with efficiency. And then audience, industry, and competitor research. Research is fun, right? But it's time consuming. And so how can you use AI to help get you a little bit further into the research so then you can go into the think, which is that strategy and the planning and how you apply that research. These are just a few examples of think versus thunk work. I really encourage you to take this model as you're thinking about your AI adoption and just put it as 2 columns. And as you look at your day, and take it for like a week, just take a paper along with you or put it in on your computer on a notepad and just, what am I doing that's think work and what am I doing that's thunk work? And you'll start to see that those columns are filling up and will help you then start identifying how you can use AI for those efficiencies. Now, there's a few different examples that I already hit, but just to share, okay, how do I take this and apply it, Brittany? Like thunk work, yes, stakeholder reports, not waking up dreaming about it. Elise just showed you one way to do it. And so that starts with Accio. So Accio is a way that you can bring together all of that data. You can have the conversation, as she was showing, through the LLM within Accio to ask those important questions that your stakeholders are going to ask of you, and then create a dashboard for them to be able to look at or to export that data for them. It's a way that brings together all of the data that gives you the analysis feature and helps cut through a lot of that time that you would be historically working on the manual components. The other, note-taking and follow-up. This is something that we started really playing with over a year ago. And I know personally it's been a game changer for me, because how awesome is it to be present in meetings instead of like hurry up and typing because you know you need to catch something. And so there are tons of note-taking apps out there. Otter AI is one of them that we use. There's a few different ones that we've been leveraging, but Otter AI is a great free one for you to try out. And you can use Otter AI. It's all safe and secure to have it record your meetings. It transcribes it. You can then take that transcription and put it into ChatGPT and tell it how, again, you tell it its job. So I want you to act as a project manager and take this meeting and give me the high level summary, give me the action items, give me the key highlights, and then any of the timelines and to-dos. And it can put it in that structure for you. And then you can easily just take that, paste it in an email and send it out. And so you've cut your time. You've been more present. So think work in your meetings. And you've also been able to take that and start to follow up and get those out faster. And then last but not least, audience and industry competitor research. We love Perplexity for this. So Perplexity really combines AI with web search. The reason why we really like it for research is it will give you all of the sources. And so it makes it really helpful. You can ask it a question, give it an audience, give it an industry to research, and it will show you what it's referencing to give you that answer. And so you can start to say like, Wikipedia is not a real resource. Like, no, I don't believe this. Or you can be like, oh, these are legitimate resources. And then you can continue to have the conversation with Perplexity and asking it more and more questions to continue to further build out your research. That, again, takes you from a 0 to a 50 real quick in your research that you're doing to then go into the think work and start seeing how you want to apply that into strategy, campaigns, whatever that might be that you're working on. These are just a few. And the ways to get more efficient with AI and really to be able to scale yourself, it starts with that efficiency with AI and thinking about what that why is and what you're trying to achieve.
Right. Thanks, Brittany and Elise. I want to share just a few takeaways here before we open it up for some Q&A. Up first, I think probably the most important thing that you can take away from this is don't wait. right? Get started today. And it's something we shared last time in our introduction to AI. And want to revisit it here, right? There's no better time than now to get familiar with the tool and think about how you can use it in your day-to-day. Remember that quote that Brittany shared, right? AI is not going to take your job. It's somebody using AI that's going to take your job, right? Somebody who's already stepping into it and reading the curve a little bit. Second piece is really the importance of understanding your why. So again, Brittany talked a little bit more about this. How do you create value? What are you trying to solve for? What do you want to do with this technology to make sure that you're putting the right plan in place moving forward? Next, it's really about getting comfortable in your prompting. So we shared a quick framework, understanding, the objective, giving the AI a job, and providing all the relevant context to make sure you're getting the output that you're looking for. And Elise walked through some very specific examples of how we do that with different tools. And then the last thing that we talked quite a bit about is think versus thunk, right? And how you can replace some of that thunk work to free you up to be more strategic and really put your mind and your presence in the most appropriate ways to help get the outcomes that you're looking for. So with that, Joe, I want to turn it back to you and maybe we can answer a few questions.
Thanks, Jeremy. It does appear like we've had a few questions come in, so let's take a look. And if you're with us, let this be a final call. If you have a question, please submit it via the Q&A functionality. Okay. This question is related to the upskilling and reskilling section. And so, Brittany, I think this is for you. What are some specific training or resources that you recommend have been helpful for you and your when you're just beginning an AI journey?
Yeah, there's so many resources out there now and like continuing to grow. The number one that I recommend is the Marketing AI Institute. So they have a ton of different trainings that you can do. They're always doing webinars with partners that are typically free to start to teach you about AI. They have a conference coming up here in Cleveland, actually, beginning of September. We'll be there. So would love to say hi to you. Other places, I love taking deep learning AI courses. And so they will range from free to maybe $100 each. So it's relatively cost friendly. And you can get deep into understanding what AI is all the way from like the foundation and growing. And then there's a bunch of influencers out there. So looking on LinkedIn, Cassie Kazarkoff, I really like her, and others that you can follow who are always sharing updates on what's happening in the industry because it's changing every day, every hour. And so it's important to not only go learn about AI, but keep an eye on the industry and what's changing.
Thank you, Brittany. It does look like we've received another question. And Elise, I think this one is for you and related to everyone's favorite topic, data hygiene. And as you're going through the exercise of data hygiene and preparation, what pitfalls, especially for healthcare organizations, should you account for when you're getting started with AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest pitfall is just not being stringent about the quality of the data that you're putting in, because you could put in really sloppy data and get an output that looks somewhat realistic and run with that. And it may not be actually indicative of the truth if you put in data that wasn't of high quality. An example of that could be, in the last 3 or 4 years, we're still dealing with kind of the COVID and post-COVID timeframe, and that had a drastic impact on performance in the healthcare space and really skewed a lot of data sets. So if you're factoring that into a forecast where you're looking at what the next few years might look like, that's a great example of a time when you might want to remove those things as outliers or consider eliminating that time frame altogether. Just knowing that it could really skew the results because things looked a lot different then. So just being mindful of the data you're putting in. And I think partnering with your internal BI team is the best way to get started so that they can help you figure out what data makes the most sense for you to use and make sure that that's structured in a way that is conducive to using it in AI.
The other thing that real quickly to that, I love everything Elise was just saying. Just a word of caution is just think about where you're putting the data into as well. And so there's so many AI tools out there. It's important to look at the security and how they're using that data or if they're not using that data. So you can anonymize it and put it in or aggregate it and anonymize it, but just make sure that you look at where you're putting your data because you could have the best data and you put it in there and it might not be a secure tool.
Thanks, Brittany. that's all the questions that we've received for this session. And so Jeremy would ask you to help folks understand what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you all again for joining us here in the last session. And for those of you who joined all five, I really appreciate your time and your attention to the topics that we shared. I hope you found it as valuable and entertaining as we did here. I want to leave you with two next steps. So number one, if you haven't already, we have an AI-empowered guidebook. So if you like the content that Brittany and Elise shared this week and a couple of weeks ago, we go even more in depth there, provide a lot more tips, examples, tools that you can take and apply right away to your work. So feel free to download that. That's at fathomdelivers.com/empowered. Second piece, we want to hear from you. So if you enjoyed this session, or even if you didn't, we want to hear, we want to understand what worked, what didn't work. And maybe most importantly, what topics are on your mind? What else would you want to hear more about? What would you like us to cover in future sessions as we continue the series? So with that, I want to thank you all again. Appreciate your time. And we're looking forward to seeing you all again in the future.